Hello and welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm Sherry Duckworth, and joining me today is Miss Latoya Smith. She is a licensed professional counselor. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Latoya, you're here to talk to us about the issue of depression,
Right.
And dealing with depression. And there's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of just not understanding fully of this particular mental illness. So if we can start off today just defining depression from a clinical standpoint, and then we'll talk a little bit about the issues that go along with that.
Sure. So depression itself, statistics show that like on an average year, about 15 million American adults deal with the symptoms of depression. So it's a really it's a really common issue, but unfortunately doesn't get talked about too much. And there's various symptoms of depression, and it's important that people recognize them for themselves. And also, if you have a loved one, you know, if you see these signs, like to point them out. So if anybody is experiencing 5 of the following symptoms in the same 2-week period, it's important that they reach out for help. And some of the most common symptoms are sadness, which some people may not be sadness. It may show anger, irritability, loss of interest in like enjoyed activities. So if you used to love going to church and being involved with everything, or going out to dinner with friends on a certain night, and all of a sudden you just lose interest in that. Suicidal thoughts or suicidal plan or attempt to suicide, feelings of worthlessness, inability to concentrate, fatigue, restlessness, or you're just feeling really slowed down lately, increase or decrease in eating habits, or increase and decrease in sleep. So all of a sudden, if you're sleeping way too much or eating way less, like these are signs. So if you notice that, okay, listen, or a loved one's been experiencing at least 5 of those in the same 2-week period, it's important to reach out for help, either a therapist or, and if you don't know where to go, maybe go to your primary care physician and say, listen, I've been experiencing these symptoms, and I need some help and support. Yeah.
Now, there's going to be people who say, well, you know, oh, I'm sad and haven't been wanting to eat. Does that make me clinically depressed? You know, or I've been feeling like, you know, I don't want to get out, but I've been really busy lately and I'm tired and I just want to sleep. So does that mean I'm depressed? Like, it can be confusing when you hear some of the symptoms. So kind of help us understand what's the difference between, you know, I've just had a really rough couple weeks, or
exactly,
there's something bigger going on here.
Yeah, and that's a good point. You want to look at the bigger picture, right? So if you like had a really big project at work and you were so busy that you didn't get to eat, that's different.
That's different, right?
It's another thing if you know, hours slip by or days and you have no appetite for a few days, and you know it's associated with something else. You know, maybe a big life-changing experience happened, and you're like, you know, I haven't been able to eat since then. You know, and sometimes too, people will say, and I tell people, listen, there's a difference between sadness and depression. You know, if I rushed home and I missed my favorite show, oh, I'm so depressed. Like, that's not depression. You're sad because you missed your show.
Right.
But that's a good question too, because you want to look at all the factors, and you also want to examine what's been going on lately in your life. You know, I mean, did a life-altering event happen? You know, and then there's some people who deal with depression. It's more biological, so they've been dealing with it for years, so that's different too. But you always want to examine the bigger picture.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, actually, is people who have a history of it in their family, like mom had it, dad had it, grandma had it, or whatever. Does that mean I'm going to suffer with depression as well? Is that something I need to be more hyper aware of? Right.
It doesn't mean just, you know, because a family member had it that you're going to get it. You always want to be aware of your family history, so you know what's going on, or, you know, is this biological, or did something occur with them? But it doesn't mean that you're automatically going to get it or experience symptoms of depression because your mother had depression. You know, it's not like that. But of course, you want to always know your family history, so you know what's going on as well.
Can you help us understand a little bit of the biological form of depression? Because you know, we hear people say sometimes, you know, well, you just need to not be sad anymore. You just need to stop. You just need to be positive. But if it's biological, they can't just stop.
And that applies even to life experiences.
Sure.
And that's one thing too. And that's why it's hard for people to come out and speak about depression.
Yes.
Because you can't just cut depression off. You know what I mean? Like if somebody had, you know, a person experiencing diabetes or heart symptoms, you can't just be like, stop having diabetes today. Like
right now.
right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
No.
And so that's hard for, you know, and that's not helpful for somebody who's dealing with symptoms of depression. When somebody says, just stop it. You know, I can't just stop this.
No.
You know, and a lot of times people will say, they'll describe, okay, I'm experiencing these symptoms of depression. It feels like I have a cloud hanging over my head. or I'm in a dark tunnel. You can't just turn that off. You know, even when it's a broken heart, you can't just stop in that moment.
Right.
And so it's not fair to that person, you know.
Right.
So that's important to remember too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when it is biological, it really is chemical. It's something in the brain, right,
Exactly.
that's happened or taken place.
Exactly.
So it's something that's like saying, I don't want you to be, brown-eyed anymore.
Exactly. You can't
Change your color right now.
Right. It's going to take time, and it's
Candy.
going to take consistent work and
Yeah.
treatment. A lot of factors to contribute that to be, to stabilize. It doesn't mean that your life is over because
Right.
you have depression, but it's more serious, and you have to, apply certain things to help.
Yeah. So if someone's diagnosed with a biological type of depression, that doesn't mean that, they're going to just stay in their house the rest of their lives. There are solutions. There are
Exactly.
things that can be done to help them.
Exactly.
And then those who experience more of like a depression that comes and goes, like something that's maybe triggered from a life experience.
Right.
Talk to us a little bit about how is that different?
Well, in those circumstances, and if we all be honest, at some point in our life, if we don't experience it ourselves, we know somebody,
It's true.
We all go through difficult times.
Right.
It doesn't mean just because I may have lost my job now, this means I'm going to be depressed for two. It doesn't mean that.
Right.
But it also means, okay, it's the same symptoms, okay? It may not last that long. Okay, and you always still want to implement the same treatments. It may be going to see a therapist, to implementing some exercise and things like that. But and that's what I tell people too. Just because you're experiencing these symptoms of depression now because of an event doesn't mean that it's a lifetime.
Right.
And sometimes people get it confused and look at it that way. It doesn't have to be a lifetime. We can just look at these symptoms right now, and we can put things in place to decrease and eliminate these, so you won't be in this place right here, next year.
And I think it's good because you said to talk about it. You're talking about it, and a lot of people are afraid to talk about it.
Yeah.
What are some of the reasons why? What are some of the myths
Yeah.
and some of the fears people have when it comes to talking about depression?
Yeah, there's in our society, a huge stigma that goes with mental health, and then, depression falls underneath that.
Yeah.
And so it's the idea of people, the fear of saying, listen, I have depression, everybody's going to think something's wrong with me, right? Or I have depression, now I can't function at work. Or I have depression, nobody will want to be my friend. So it's a fear of saying that, because then it looks at, okay, something's wrong with me. So that shame and that stigma, quiets somebody's voice. And that's unfortunate, because one way of healing from depression is actually beginning to talk about it. Yeah. That's how you got to, begin to work through it and say, I need help, or I'm experiencing these things, and reach out for help.
Right.
So it goes both ways. Well, I want help, I need help, but I don't want to say anything.
But I don't want to say anything. So
Yeah.
removing that stigma is super important.
Very important.
Talking about it, and it is an illness. And like you mentioned, diabetes. Well, if you have diabetes, you're going to go to the doctor, and you're going to
Exactly.
figure out how to get that fixed. So
Exactly.
if you know that you have the symptoms of depression, talk about it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's important to do that. And it's important to also have people around that are willing to hear and to listen, and to be comforted, and not just say, okay, stop it, get over it.
Right.
Okay, enough now, enough already. Let's get up and do something. It's
is-
not that easy.
Yeah, that's harmful.
It is. It is.
Well.
But then that shame comes back.
Right.
Because
they can't stop it. So then there must be something wrong with me.
Exactly.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about a Christian perspective here. Whenever, especially those who are watching today, our Christian viewers, we're always looking for that biblical worldview, and that, what's the Christ-like way of addressing this issue? And so when we talk about depression, it happens to everybody, Christians too.
Exactly.
Especially when it's something biological, and we all go through sad things.
Yeah.
So what is our responsibility, and what is a Christ-like way of addressing it
Yeah.
when we are experiencing depression, or if our loved one is?
Right. You know what? I think when you say what's a Christ-like way, automatically it's show love,
Right,
And so
yeah.
you don't say get over it. You don't say that's it. You don't say you've changed, what's wrong with you, right? So you still want that gentleness to be there.
Yeah.
But really, it's not like this drastic difference. Like, this is the worldly way, this is the Christian way.
Right.
But unfortunately, it's addressed two different ways. And I think a lot of times, again, it goes back to the point that I made, like a lot of times people don't want to say they're dealing with depression because they say something's wrong with me. Where's my faith level at, Or I'm just supposed to pray about it and it should be done, but I can't focus on praying because I'm dealing with these issues that go with the symptoms,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's unfortunately in some Christian environments, you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to pray about it and you're supposed to go on. And what I try to tell people, what I teach people is you can pray about it and you can still get the treatment that you need. Same way with diabetes or heart issues. You know, you can pray about it. God can do anything, and He can move, and He's all powerful, right?
Yes.
But you still got to get the treatment. You still got to take good care of yourself. That's wisdom,
Yeah.
you know, and the word.
Going,
You can put
going
the
to
two
see your
together.
counselor is your answer to your prayer.
Yeah.
Your counselor could be that answer. It's
Exactly.
part of the answer.
Exactly, and that's
Yeah.
a good point. Yeah, yeah,
For sure.
that's a good point. So you can pray, but you still got to put things into action at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really powerful and really good. It's practical,
Right.
you know, and I mean, Jesus always made sure people were fed and that they could see and that they had shelter. So He looked at the practical needs as
Exactly.
well.
Yeah, that's a good
you know,
point.
and
Yeah.
so I think it's really great, you know, that you say it doesn't necessarily have to be here's a Christian perspective and here's the secular perspective. It's
Yeah.
what's healthy for the person. Let's look at the practical. Let's pray about it and let's
Exactly.
take action to go along with it too.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
addressing it with our loved ones with love,
Exactly. Yeah.
you know, looking at it from a perspective of love and being gentle.
Yeah.
And
And I think it's
go
important
ahead.
too to mention that if a family member feels that they can't do that with love, then always that's when you seek that treatment.
Right.
But in the Christian community, like I said a few moments ago, if 15 million Americans on a yearly basis deal with this, then there's Christians who also deal with this.
Yeah, there's
you know.
people in your church right now.
Right, who deal with
who are
this.
dealing
So
with
it's
this.
important, so it's not like this is something nobody's ever heard of.
Right.
And so being able to have that dialogue, and I'm just amazed, and even for myself, how much growth there is, how much power there is in storytelling and sharing.
Yes.
So if one person stood up and said, listen, I've dealt with depression, this is something that I deal with, but these are the steps I take, to help me, how that can help somebody else.
It removes
what I
the
mean?
stigma.
Exactly. In that transparent moment, and then it's like removes the stigma, like you said, and all of a sudden the guard is down, and it's like, wow.
And the
Like, I didn't know.
shame starts to just dissipate.
Because you feel this connection, and it's okay to talk about, like you two, okay, and then you can pray together. The power of prayer can still happen,
Yes.
in the moment of still getting treatment and opening up and discussing. You know what I mean? So I think creating those environments are extremely important.
It's a
as
support
well in
system.
church.
It's that
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
positive support system. How important is that for people who are suffering from depression to have other people who have also been there or are there?
Yeah.
That support system. How important is that in their recovery?
Yeah, I think that's important for anybody, but especially in this, you need to know that you have loved ones around and good support. You want to be in a healthy environment. It's hard to thrive, it's hard to grow, it's hard to heal in an unhealthy environment. So that's extremely important. And it doesn't have to be, it's great when it's shared over, if it's talked about amongst the whole body of the church, and to make it common discussion. But it's also okay to have like intimate conversations or small groups if need be, or certain Bible studies that deal with it, the symptoms as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And having someone educated that can help them address the issues is super important.
Oh, yeah.
Someone like yourself, a
Yeah.
licensed counselor,
Yeah.
who can address the issues directly and solutions that they can
Yeah.
place and steps they can take.
It's very important because in this day and age, we're very quick to Google something and say that we
Right.
know it.
Yeah.
I read this article on this website, so I got it down.
We all
It's
have
very
our
important.
online doctorates out there, medical
Yeah.
degrees, right?
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
so dangerous.
So very important to find a therapist
Absolutely.
that can help you out.
I love that. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Thank you for talking with us. And thank you all for watching Joy in Our Town.